And welcome to the Midday Show. We are back. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. We're going to try to catch up. We're going to go over some headlines. I have some Twitter bans, some TikTok bans, the Ja Morant discussion that I want to have with you. We have a lot of different things here because we haven't spoken to each other consistently for almost a week. And I know you're going to make some corny joke about how much better your life was. So before I play the intro, go ahead. Mark, we haven't talked to each other in almost a week.
I was just going to say, I was at your house yesterday.
It's called playing along, Mark. It's called
Other than that,
sometimes people only see us here, so when they didn't see us last week here, they don't think we actually spoke to each other. They think that we didn't speak.
Yeah,
correct.
No, it has, but we have people missed us.
It's funny. I have had people reach out like, "Are you guys okay? Is everything all right?" It's a real thing.
I did have a guy last night who he said, "I didn't see you guys on in a while." And it's like, "Well, we weren't on last week. We were just, stuff came up from like day to day, and I had to go pick up my daughter from college one day, and all, there's just stuff." And he said, he goes, "I never really know. It just pops up on my phone, and that's when I watch it." So I wonder how many people are like that they're just like, it's kind of like stumbling across reruns on television.
A little bit.
There's like, I know when this is there and I'm watching it, and other people are like, "Oh, look, there it is. I'll watch it."
So I have a friend that lives in Harrisburg, and she was telling me about how she'll come home during the day and she'll hear my voice like in the back room, and she'll be like, "Are you on the phone with Jeff?" And they'll be like, "No, I'm listening to the show." So she thinks that every day he's talking to me on the phone. And then finally she went back and she was like, "Are you still talking to him?" She was like, No, I watch the show every day. So we
have an audience in Harrisburg.
Oh yeah. So I think you and I've talked about this before. I forget that a lot of our people, they have lives. Like they're busy during the middle of the day. So they end up watching it later at night when, they hop on Facebook and the notification pops up.
I'm still surprised anyone watches, even though we are almost every now and then.
Almost. Soon to be. We're getting closer and closer. We will eventually get there. We have some headlines, again, some different things. Eventually, I do want to talk to you about, I think there's a really neat conversation about Ja Morant and mental health and that whole aspect. Is there anything that's been on your mind that you haven't gotten a chance to say to the public?
I just want to get this out of the way now before we forget it. We'll start Monday on a light note in the college basketball world. This is championship week. It's kind of the fun calm before the storm of March Madness. Tomorrow night, 7:30 on ESPN2.
Okay.
Fairleigh Dickinson, who my buddy used to call Fairly Ridiculous.
Okay.
At Merrimack.
Okay.
I will give you $1 if you can name where either of those schools are.
Fairleigh Dickinson, Virginia.
I don't know the answer.
Oh, okay.
I'm asking you. Merrimack. I don't even know if I've ever heard of a college named Merrimack.
This is where we're going to get ourselves in trouble. Are those Pennsylvania schools? Those might be Pennsylvania
I think Fairleigh
schools.
Dickinson's.
If you know where these schools are, please comment.
Well, I can Google it here.
Let us know.
Merrimack wasn't it? It was one of the Monitor and the Merrimack were the two ironclad ships during the Civil War.
Yes.
I don't know which one was north and which one was south. But
the other one was called Merrimack.
The Monitor and the Merrimack.
Interesting. Okay.
I think it was close to that. Glad to see you're back. There's one person.
There's how did the UNC Duke game go, Jeff? Here, I will say this. I will say this. If you watched the UNC Duke game this year, you need to find when both teams aren't ranked, neither team should be bragging about the fact that they won the Duke UNC game this year. So to all the Duke
I thought he was just making fun of you.
So to all the Duke fans that feel like, oh yes, like we got them. We ended Coach K's career last year. This is not equivalent. You need like 5 straight wins before we're even close to getting back on the same page. I had mentioned to you before the show, for anybody who had gone to a Lycoming college basketball game, the former coach at Lycoming, Mike McGarvey, left to go to Lafayette as an associate head coach. He is now the acting head coach, and with a 10-22 record, in the last month or so, he has led them to the Patriot League championship game. which is a really, really good. So shout out to the former Lycoming coach, Mike McGarvey. Congratulations on that. Really, really great run.
Okay.
What were you doing over there? I could
Fairleigh Dickinson.
By the way, I could see your hair was about to light on fire if you thought any harder.
Whatever.
Go ahead.
Fairleigh Dickinson is in Teaneck, New Jersey.
Okay. Yep.
Merrimack College.
Okay.
Is in Andover, Massachusetts.
Okay. A Facebook user got them both right.
Well, they Googled
Massachusetts
it.
or New Hampshire?
I got them both right because I Googled it.
Ah, okay. Here, Jimmy says the old ask a question and not know the answer trick. Well, listen, you're the producers. You're supposed to be giving us this information as we go along. Bogue just brought up Merrimack just transitioned to D1 within the last few years. So that's
they are. Oh, I don't know because as you just said, with Lafayette, they are one game away from. I was just looking through at games. I don't know if they're in the same boat, but one game, 40 good minutes away.
Yeah.
And stranger things have happened. It is. What'd you say the record is
for Lafayette?
Yes,
10-22.
There have been like 11 and 18 teams that got in.
Yeah.
It is not unheard of.
So this is interesting.
It's hard to put together a run like this if you're 10. It's not just you don't have to have one good game. You have to have like 4 good games.
Yes.
But when you've already it's easy to have 4 good games in a row when you've already had 3.
Yes, it is.
So
staying with the local ties, we wrote an article about the Elizabethtown girls. I shouldn't call them girls. Elizabethtown women's basketball.
Yeah, don't call them
team.
girls.
I
learned that.
I corrected myself. The Elizabethtown women's college basketball team made the NCAA tournament. They actually won their first round game before losing to the number 1 team in the country the following day. So shout out to them for getting a W. Some former Loyalsock Lancers, some former Mount Carmel Red Tornadoes. There's a Sullivan County Griffin on that team. So a lot of local flavor on the Elizabethtown women's basketball.
I've asked you this before. What is a Griffin?
Isn't
Other than a player at Sullivan
County. Isn't it a lion
County?
with wings? It's like an eagle and a lion morphed.
Oh, it's like a mythical figure.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
That's what I thought. I'm pretty sure Griffin is.
Did I ever tell you this story? And this has nothing. There's important things for us to talk about because I do want to talk about the John Morant and the is he a jerk or is it mental health or whatever as we've discussed, and it is a very fascinating topical thing because I think everyone across the board does realize that mental health is it's one of the great challenges of our time.
Sure.
Because it is so, someone coughs 15 times and they're sick.
Sure.
Mental health is it's different. So we do want to get to that. But back to your point about the girls team in Elizabethtown and the women's team in Elizabethtown.
Mm-hmm.
They're 18, 19, 20 years old. And I was the PA announcer at Susquehanna when I was there because I played baseball and football, but in basketball, I was the guy that did the PA announcing for the starting lineup, substitution, whatever. And at the timeouts, you had these things to read, from sponsors and from this and once you ran out of those, then you just like, hey, this is what's coming up. Wrestling is this night, and girls basketball. The girls play on the road here, but the next time they're home or whatever. Right. So as it's going on now, you're just filling time, and we're doing one of them. And I said, hey, the next time the guys are home Wednesday against whoever, the girls are home Thursday, and our trainer, who was a female, literally reprimanded me.
Yeah, because
it's not girls basketball; they're women.
Correct.
And I'm like, okay, first of all, they're 18, 19, like guys, girls, it's if you are that offended that someone would refer to a like the Elizabethtown, like the girls play, and they're like, no, they're the women, then you're a little too hypersensitive.
Here's what I would say, because I just corrected myself.
Correct.
When I did. Here's what I would say. I don't have an issue with being corrected. Just give me a chance to correct it. Right? Like because here's what I would say. I would make the same mistake for the boys. Like I have called the Lock Haven men's basketball team the Lock Haven boys basketball team. Like I've made the same mistake for both genders. And so for that reason, I would say like,
is it a mistake?
I think I understand the sentiment of it because I would imagine it happens more for the ladies than it does for the guys.
The reason is the English language reason for it is on the masculine side. There is this term called guy that is just universally. There's a little guy, an old guy. Guy works for everything.
Do you call ladies guys? I do it all the time.
No, there's no female equivalent.
If you're with a group of 6 people and 3 are girls and 3
Oh,
are
what are you
boys.
guys doing?
I refer to everybody as guys.
Yes.
Like it's the guys. Like we're all.
Oh, well, I don't do that.
Okay.
But you'll be like, you yell across the room, hey, what are you guys doing for lunch?
Correct.
And it is absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, but if you walked into Lock Haven University and you were talking to people because you played there and you're like, hey, no, the boys' locker room is right down there.
Mm-hmm.
And someone went, oh, it's the men's locker room. Then, oh my gosh. Like, that's part of our problem with society.
It's weird.
Back to the whole, who's the guy that said if you're offended? Who was that guy?
Ricky Gervais.
Ricky Gervais.
Yes.
Yes.
I found it funny. You found it offensive. And that's why
if you're bothered by the fact that someone would call the college team boys and girls as opposed to men's and women's, then
see, I think both can be true. I think I agree with your sentiment, but like just give me a chance to correct it because I will. Like it doesn't.
You don't need to correct it. I knew what you meant.
I have no issue correcting it.
If you walked into Montoureville High School and said, "Hey, where's the men's locker room?" I wouldn't say it's not men, it's boys.
Well, that's...
like, I mean, good God, like really, these are the things you get worked up about. Then you need to find something more important to get worked.
Some of it's okay, but some of it is ingrained though, because like I was just with some little kids this weekend. We had like people over and visiting, and I referred to like a 3-year-old, and I said, "You were sleeping like a baby," and they were like, "I don't sleep like a baby." And this is a 3-year-old.
Well, they don't get it.
I'm just saying though, like to me, like it is innately ingrained that like it is offensive when it feels like someone calls you something lower than it is when someone calls you something that is considered higher or above.
I mean, yeah. Now,
when a 3-year-old is,
I can understand why a 3-year-old doesn't want to be called a baby anymore. That's different. That's different.
So you're going to defend the 3-year-old and not the 19-year-old woman playing college basketball.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
And if the 3-year-old would have told you to shut the hell up, then I would defend him even more.
Okay.
And then he grabbed you by the throat and beat you with his binky. That would have been.
Beat you with his binky.
Did he have a binky?
Everyone has. Did you have like a blanket or a binky growing up? I did not either. I had cousins that did though. I had cousins that had like very like significant.
I had stuffed animals that I slept with.
Okay.
That never left the bed.
Yes.
But not that got carried around the house. Not like Linus and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You do know who Linus is, right? You're
from Charlie Brown.
Okay. I know you're young. I just don't know.
Charles Schultz is one of the greatest artists in American history. I'm assuming he was American. Maybe he was English. He had to be American.
Schultz would have been. Schultz sounds German.
Maybe the Peanuts gang is pretty. Yeah, but the Peanuts gang is pretty American.
It's so Americanized. That's an interesting question. And Charles, that's a good question. It wasn't Seuss. Wasn't Dr. Seuss German?
I don't know. We'll have to ask.
Okay. Anyway, be that as it may.
Rance says, yeah, that's like when someone calls me buddy or pal. It's disrespectful.
When someone calls you buddy or pal in public, it's because they can't remember your name.
So I'm going to give away my secret. If I call you boss, I have probably forgotten your first name for a second. And here's the thing. I do it with people I know very well. Just in the moment, I can't because I'm just so bad with names and numbers. I'm so bad with names and numbers. So if I call you, if I'm like, hey boss, like that's a telltale sign that I've done it. Oh, Jimmy, you call me buddy all the time. So that's a problem for them. That's a problem for you. Do you have like your go? Mine is boss. You don't have your like go-to? I don't usually say buddy or pal. Boss is like my generic, and it works. You can call it. You can use it both ways. You can use it for men and women.
I don't.
You know what I like about boss?
With my friends, my greeting is usually filled with profanity, but I only do that to my friends. If it's somebody that I don't know their name, I'm not going to insult them.
I've been around you for 4 years consistently now, and so is everybody your friend? That's essentially what you're saying.
Well, I like to make people feel welcome.
Correct. So you use a profanity to welcome everybody.
Not everybody. If I don't know their name, I don't.
It's pretty close. It's not far off. It's not far off.
Anyway.
Okay, here's just a couple of things because we have all. I don't even know where to begin. Let's go with this one. Let's stay with social media. You and I have talked about TikTok before. Mm-hmm. You're telling us about your daughter's account on TikTok. Your kids are involved in TikTok. I'm very deep in the TikTok world. I find it's actually becoming a greater and greater place to find information if your algorithm is correct. There are currently 7.
How many people? It's going to be one of the things in society. I just had the wrong algorithm. That is the future of America. My algorithm was off.
I really believe that could be like an argument someday. Don't you think so?
I do. I never thought of it until you just said it. But like, Mom, I just had a crappy algorithm.
Do you want to do something really trippy? So all of these apps now, they ask for your location services, so they know where you are. Turn off your location services for a day and wait until you see the things that come up on because you will be fed things closer to you, right? So you'll see a video from a creator that's maybe 30 miles that way. Turn off your location services. You'll start getting stuff from overseas. You'll start getting stuff from across the country. I mean, it is what you see and what the algorithm dictates matters. Like, it makes a big difference.
It's funny you mention that. And this, because I've gotten things for like concerts, and I'm all excited about it.
Yeah.
And then I see, it's in Lakeview, Florida.
Your
I'm like, why am I getting that?
Services are probably turned off.
It might be, because it happens more with concerts than anything else. Because obviously with the game, you know where the game is or sporting event. But you'll see this band playing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's in Madison, Wisconsin. It's like, that doesn't do me anything.
Another really, because you're on Instagram as well. So another really trippy thing to do on Instagram, take like 10 minutes and only click on like one genre of things. So like maybe it's football Instagrams or something like that. And then come back to the app an hour later. It'll be all football. It'll be like nothing else in the world exists. So it is, the algorithm matters.
Now here's the problem. One of these nights that I'm sitting around watching somebody, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, you should.
And I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna pick another one.
Yes.
And I'll do football.
Yeah.
And then I'll do rock bands. And then I'll do haunted houses.
Like these little things that I'm telling you, I think everyone should have to do them once, just so just
to get it.
It's like an awakening of kind of like, oh wow, like this really does dictate what's in front of me and what I see.
I would bet my location services is off a lot then.
Yes.
Because it's happened to me.
I believe that.
And I have been duped. Like, yes, I want, it's in California. I'm not going to California.
I've never once seen a concert put in front of me outside of Pennsylvania.
So yours
might be out. So one of the things that's happened, the Biden administration is giving federal agencies 30 days to make sure that TikTok is removed from all official government devices. There are currently, according to this report from the Delaware Valley Journal, there are currently only 7 senators left that have TikTok on their government devices. 3 of them are from the state of Pennsylvania. Now, I know what you're saying. Technically, the state of Pennsylvania only has 2. I believe the 3rd is a state senator, and that's what they are referring to. Shocking. I mean, there's only 7 in the entire country. Almost half of them are in Pennsylvania. I don't know how I feel about, I get not having them on the government devices, but I mean, to limit a politician, when you look at all the things they can raise money, they can get sponsorships, all stuff, to then say the most powerful tool in social media is off limits to them, like to say like you can't be on it. I don't know. I think you almost have to. I think there's a reason some of these state senators are fighting to stay on it. I think there's a reason that Biden has to come out and say 30 days, because it's been almost a year and you still have people that have decided like, I think I'm going to stay. Like, I think I'm sticking around for this.
Yeah.
I just find it interesting.
It's a fascinating debate.
Yeah.
And because it is so powerful. Not
correct.
I don't know. I think to the vast majority of society, it's part of society. It's mainstream. It's like, it was like television and radio, and it's.
So, and I've never heard it compared to
like back in the day.
Yeah, no, I've never heard it compared to those medias before, because you certainly can't refer to it as mainstream. Because I would argue when most people walk in a house, there's almost always a TV or a radio. There is a chance that no one has TikTok on their phone. So I don't know if you could refer to it as mainstream. I mean, we're getting close. I'm not saying
okay, I get that point, but everyone has their phone.
Correct.
And yes, there's people that aren't on Facebook, but it's so mainstream that it's
right.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good argument that it is TikTok, quote unquote, mainstream. But I mean, it kind of is. It's so busy. There's so much traffic.
The weird part now is, do you remember when Trump came out and tried to get rid of it? Like, it was basically like, we're going to ban the whole thing. The irony now is, if let's say that they do want to ban it, like let's say that it's eventually a place they want to get to. I just think the longer it goes, the harder it is. It's like, I think in the moment, and when Trump announced that, if you were like, that was the moment. Like, it was like, we have to do this now, because now it just feels like it gets harder. I mean, now again, you have senators that are kind of like, I think I'm still doing this. Like,
right.
This isn't like 16-year-old boys and girls running around and like denying to get it off of their phone. I mean, these are grown ass politicians that are
quote grown ass,
and they're like, no, I think we're going to keep it. So, Heather says those 7 probably don't know how to remove it from their devices. There's probably some truth to that.
No, they should know, because they're grown ass politicians.
They are. So I found that interesting. Another thing, Twitter stats came out. So remember, we were talking about some of the Twitter files.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually just released some of the stats, and some of these have been out for a while now, but they verified that 10% of all Twitter creators, users, make up 80% of the content. So,
I believe that.
So it is. So now there's a conversation surrounding Twitter, and actually,
well, actually, that is a big number. Hold on, let me
wrap your head around it.
That is a big, because when you go, my first thought was, when you go on Facebook, you see the same people posting all the time, and then there's people like, I throw up a post once every 2 weeks, like whether I need to or not, and but 80% is a lot of volume.
It's a lot. So one of the things that happened, I don't know if you saw this or not, Hassan Minaj has been doing The Daily Show. I don't know if you've come across that or not. He's doing like a guest host thing. I don't know how long he's going to do it for, but he brought up these stats and he did this whole segment, and the whole gig was, at the end of it, he deleted his Twitter account. Like, he was free. And then at the end of it, as he was walking out the door, he did the Jim Carrey, if I don't see you, good morning, good evening, good night. He did like that whole skit. It was pretty clever. But he leaves Twitter, and part of the reason he said he was leaving Twitter was this idea of like, what's the point of it? Like, why use it? But I'm curious of your opinion on this. I feel like that's the majority of the things we use. Is you have a finite group of people that put out most of it. Isn't that TV? Like, isn't that radio? Like, isn't that?
Isn't it everything? It's wrestling. It's basketball. It's, when you go to a sporting event, how many people are going to States? How many people are going to this game? You pick what you like. And it's with restaurants. It's with movies. It's with music. It's with everything. You pick what you like, and you pick what's useful to you.
Can I give you the McDonald's stat?
Sure.
McDonald's feeds 1% of the world every day.
I love McDonald's.
Isn't that like, when you really think about that for a second?
And I shouldn't really say it like it, because I love lots of fast food. Yeah, like, there's not a burger joint that I don't like.
Every day, one corporation feeds 1% of the world.
That is incredible.
That's really incredible. So to your point, like, I'm not saying Elon Musk is perfect. You and I've already debated him. I'm not saying this whole Twitter thing has been like a gallant success. All I'm saying, though, is like, people are so ready to like be mad at Elon Musk that they're like, oh, Twitter's a wreck, I'm getting off of it. 10% makes 80%. And I'm sitting back and I'm like, are you going to stop watching TV? Like, are you going to stop listening to the radio? Like, because to just pick Twitter because of that statistic, it's just not I don't know. I feel like that's everything else.
It is there. I mean, it's the bus line.
Yeah.
How many people use the bus? Well, but for the people who use the bus, it's important.
Yes. Can you say on the Midday Show, we'll have the producers vote. The producers can vote. It's not the first one that we've dropped on the show. I will say that.
It's interesting he brings that up, and he was joking, I think. But when I lived in Baltimore in the 90s, I lived, because Mike it was the late 90s. I think I was there 2000, 2001. But there was a radio ad. It's the first time this conversation ever. Well, for the Kick-Ass was a movie that was just, it was there. There was a radio ad for a bar.
Yeah.
And it was like Monday nights or Wednesday nights, whatever. And it was called Big Ass Draft Night.
Okay.
And for, it was $2 all night. You can get a big ass draft.
Would or wouldn't say it on the air.
It was a paid commercial.
Right.
It was like produced by a company.
And you guys would say.
Oh, I don't think it was on our station.
Okay.
But you're driving down the radio and they're like, hey, Tuesday night, it's a big ass draft night. And I remember like thinking, wow.
Yeah.
Like wow.
It's just a donkey.
But then it is a donkey. But then, not only was Kick-Ass a movie, there was Kick-Ass 2.
Right.
And it is, but then you go all the way back, and I don't know, in the 70s, Elton John had a hit called The Bitch Is Back.
Yeah.
And it now, and then as a kid, I'll never forget when I was a teenager, whatever. Do you ever watch the New York Kennel Dog Show, whatever, the biggest dog show in the world?
Yeah, I've always seen it. Like, I don't like, it's not
I
like
can't think of what it's called.
It's not appointment television, but I know what you're talking about.
It's the famous one. If you told me, I can't believe I'm blanking on the name. But the commentators continually use the term bitch.
Yeah.
Because that's where it, it's derived from it. And they just use it during and it's just like linebacker or power forward. And when you hear it used in that context, it was like now we're totally off base here, but did you ever see the Simpsons episode when Homer found out he had a long lost brother?
Okay. And
he was essentially like he'd become Lee Iacocca.
Okay.
And he was this rich guy who had this blah blah blah, and he was this because Homer's dad had an affair with some girl at the carnival when he was young, and this kid went up for adoption, and this guy comes back and finds Homer's long lost brother. Right. And Bart's sitting in the back seat, and this is on Fox on Sunday night. And Bart's sitting in the back seat going, bastard, bastard, bastard. Yeah. And they're like, stop it. He goes, but he is. And it is fascinating, though, the whole like language of what is acceptable and what is not, because what was originally deemed as a real term, and then it got morphed because of society's use of it in a derogatory term that took a normal term that then made it off base. Yeah. But anyway, I don't think that same thing happened with grown ass adult as you had so eloquently used. But anyway, be that as it may.
No, I get it. You want to do John Morant real quick before we go to that?
The John Morant story is fascinating. You know more about it than I do, but the angle that you have is fascinating.
This is like the 30-second rundown of it. For those who don't know, John Morant is a professional basketball player for the Memphis Grizzlies.
Super basketball player.
Super. He's an all-star. People would argue he's one of the best 10 players in the world at this point in his career, and he's young.
He's a kid.
We're talking like 23, 24 maybe. John Morant is currently suspended indefinitely from his team. I don't know if they're calling it a suspension, but that's basically what's happening.
I read he's away from the team indefinitely.
The team has stepped in, and I think before suspensions were handed out, I think the team basically said, we've got this. Right. He's stepping away indefinitely. This is a fascinating story for me because of all the things we've talked about recently, as far as we've done the Kyrie Irving conversation. We've talked about Kanye West on here. We've had lots of conversations about Donald Trump and just different aspects of as far as the difference. I will use the word, the difference between being an ass and mental health, right? And we've talked about Ben Simmons, right? And trying to balance the two of like, he's saying it's mental health, but boy, he sure looks like an ass as he's talking about it, and just trying to balance those two things. The John Morant one is really interesting to me because for those who don't know, he had an allegation about having a dispute with a mall cop where he kind of got into the mall cop's face and started doing some stuff. He also had a dispute at a pickup basketball game with we'll call him a juvenile. He was a teenager, but basically it sounds as if there was physical abuse during this pickup game. Punches were swung, punches were landed. He also, I believe, is pressing charges against John Morant. And then after those two things came out, John Morant was on a social media video showing a gun while he was at a nightclub, at a public nightclub. So those three events are kind of leading up. There's also one other event with a group of his collective group where they were, I believe it was in Indiana. There was like a laser involved and they were trying to make someone feel threatened. But I don't know if John Morant was directly attached to that event. I don't know if he was there or anything else. With all of that being said, I have heard so many people talk about what a jerk John Morant is, what an ass he is, all of these things. And what's fascinating to me is, for whatever reason, John Morant is not getting the same allowance, the same brevity to go through this as other athletes, actors, other people. And what's crazy is when I read this story, like when I go through this, to me, this screams mental health. And so I wanted your opinion.
It is interesting.
So one of the reasons that to me it screams mental health. And again, I'm not a doctor. Like you and I are just we're just on here talking about it. As I go through this, all of these events are sporadic. There is no benefit to him doing these things. Like it's not if he was cheating on another, right? There's a sexual advantageousness to it where, and I'm not saying that makes it right, but I'm saying like it's clear what the benefit is.
There's a motivation.
If you rob somebody, you're getting something out of it. All of these instances, there's no benefit for him. Like there's no benefit for him at a pickup game to pick on a 17-year-old. There's no benefit for him to start a fight with a mall cop. There's no benefit for him to show like brandishing a gun on his social media. And so what I keep saying to people is like, you hear all this stuff and it's like, well, mental health. And then I'm looking at this John Morant situation and everyone's like, boy, what a jerk. Like what an ass. And I'm like looking at it and I'm like, this screams mental health.
Well, it's a good question. To me, the other side of the coin could be it just screams immaturity.
Mm-hmm.
And I would guess that the people around him on a regular basis know whether he's just a jerk or whether he's just immature and because he's been such a good basketballer, he's been able to do whatever he's wanted his whole life. Because I think, not that we know any of these people, but you see someone like Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
I don't think there's any mental health issues with Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers comes across like a jerk. And I think his history will show that. Then you got other guys like Antonio Brown, who maybe CTE is involved or whatever. But with all the Antonio Brown antics, as he's gotten older, people start to wonder, like, is there some mental illness here? So
what I'm hearing from you, which is really interesting because I hadn't thought of it this way, is you're saying that his age may give off the sentiment that it is more about him being immature than it is about his mental health.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
Well, it gives an opportunity. If he was 33 as opposed to 23, I would think that he's kind of grown out of this by now. And the whole, no matter what the mall cop says to you at 33, you're not getting in a fight in a pickup basketball game. And I would say, my guess would be that that's universal, whether you're an NBA player or not. You're a 23-year-old, you're still trying to show that I would bet there are way more fistfights at pickup basketball games between guys under 25 than guys over 30.
Oh, I would agree with that. This is my other point. I'm curious of your take on this as well. I think the hardest thing when we talk about mental health is when someone claims mental health, right? Like when someone says, I think I have a mental health problem. I think that's a very hard thing for us to wrap our head around because there's so many times with this stuff. Ben Simmons claims mental health issues, but it's very clear Ben Simmons wants his money. And the only way for him to get his money is to justify the fact that he can't play basketball, right? And so all of a sudden now he speaks up about mental health, right? I think the people that I have the easiest time, and this isn't even fair to people, right? Like this is just because, again, as society, we are trying to understand how to deal with this stuff, like truly for the first time.
Right.
One of the hardest things for me is most of the people that I believe it, like when I'm like, oh, they have mental health issues, it's because they have a hard time telling you that they have mental health issues. Like when the Kanye West stuff first came out about being bipolar, it kind of made sense to me because I was like, he wouldn't admit to it.
Right.
Like he wouldn't admit that he was bipolar. Like that's part of the challenge, right? Guess what John Morant's not doing? John Morant will not admit that this is mental health. Like he will not claim that there's something. And so for me, like that is in every experience that I've had as we've learned more and more about this stuff, I do think one of the telltale signs sometimes for it is the unwillingness to admit to it. like the unwillingness to admit that you are doing these sporadic things and they are beyond your control.
No, I get it. But the other aspect is we have to keep in mind that there is a very good chance that Ja Morant's just a jerk.
Listen, I agree, which is why if I didn't think that, this conversation isn't very interesting, right?
Correct.
Like if I thought Ja Morant was just a jerk, or if I thought Ja Morant just had mental health issues, then it
is fair.
But
it's very fair.
But because I don't know, like because I'm watching people kind of react to this, and as I'm watching it, I'm like, no one reacted this way to this athlete or to this singer or to this. But for some reason, we have decided that Ja Morant, it can't possibly be health issues. And I'm looking and I'm kind of like, I don't know, like it matches up with a lot of the other things that ended up being mental health issues. Like when I look at other people that have experienced this in the limelight, like as celebrities, it aligns with it a lot.
Well, there's another aspect too that when you look back at lots of people in the limelight, whether they're rock stars or athletes or actors or whatever, I think for so many of those people, or let me say for the normal people of life, like a 9-to-5 job keeps you out of trouble.
Sure.
Or, whether you're first shift, second shift, third shift, the routine of like, I got to go to work, then I got a little time, then I got to go to bed because I got to get up and go to work tomorrow, keeps a lot of people out of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
For these people who don't have that and I think there's a lot of people who had some great talent, but their great talent was not mental strength. And you see people who were overcome, like the Darryl Strawberries of the world, the Ron Artests of the world, which I don't even, what is his name now?
Meta World Peace.
That there are people like that who you can see that, I don't want to say almost melted down in public. Todd Marinovich was one of them. Now he had a drug problem, but there are lots of these people who just thrown to the spotlight and just kind of disintegrate because, and I don't know if I think there would be an aspect of mental health and then mental strength and mental weakness. And we see it as people who, the ability, people when they're, whether it's with exercise or diet or getting the job done, they just talk like I'm so weak and I cave and all this stuff. And when these people are given, they have all this money, really, the world is yours. You can do whatever you want. And they have trouble reining themselves in to be like, what am I doing? What am I going to do? And it is, so that goes along with, is that mental health or is it just?
I'm so glad we talked about this because you're making me see the other side of things. I took it as, for those who don't know, Ja Morant might have been the most unentitled basketball pick.
Didn't he play at Morehead State or something?
He had one offer. It was Murray State.
And the Racers.
Yes. And he was not like this. He was not a highly valued recruit. He was not like some sneaker kid who was like given everything. Like this is somebody who has heard no before, has been told no before. And so like I look at that as more of a reason of why this is so telling. Because this isn't somebody who's just kind of like, no, like I don't want to. Like this isn't somebody who has grown up in an environment that has been enabled, right? But what you're saying is, you're almost saying the opposite, which is because he grew up in an environment and now that he is enabled, how do you handle that? Like, are you prepared for that? And I hadn't thought of that. I just find his situation, I think anybody who is willing to just be like, what a jerk, or anybody who is willing to be like, he definitely has mental health issues, I'm here to say, I think it's an open conversation. And if you're just walking around going, Ja Morant is a complete jerk, I would hold off. I would wait.
And that's fair.
Because this screams like there's something deeper than that.
I just had a train of thought there and I kind of lost it. But one of the things, when you look at, all right, now I'm back to it. When just normal people, just not the famous and rich, just us normal schmucks.
The people that are like soon to be Emmy nominated. Those types
and all of our 20 listeners. When you see the struggle for happiness that so many people have anyway, whether it's occupationally or relationship wise or whatever, and people that get to the weekend and they're trying to figure out what they want to do to have fun, and they're just kind of like lost.
Right.
And I do this, but in world they're kind of wandering for their purpose. Um, I think those people still exist even in these echelons, but they're rich.
Sure.
And we know people who don't know what to do to have fun, who are kind of wandering through life. And now imagine that person having a Visa card that is bottomless.
Sure.
And so now what are they doing on the week? Well, they're flying to Vegas, they're going to Key West, they're doing this and they're doing that,
Yeah.
and they're doing all these things, and they're still just searching.
Right.
And I think that when I was with Mike's career and the other baseball players and these guys that are rich and famous, it is shocking how many of them off the field were as normal as your neighbor.
Right.
And they had a wife, they had kids.
Yeah.
How many of them their wife they've known from college, and they're just boring ho-hum guys
Right.
who could hit or who could pitch.
Right.
And that was what made them different.
But here's what they weren't doing. You know what they weren't doing? Getting in fights with mall cops.
Because they were
getting in
normal.
fights with 17-year-old kid. So that's the point. That's why to me this just screams mental health. Because what you're describing is
maybe.
if you gave me an unlimited credit card, if you gave me a black card and said go have fun, I'm not finding mall cops to pick on them. I'm not going to the local park and fighting.
But you are one of those people that has a center basis as a person.
But what I'm saying is how many people would that be the thing you would do once you were able to do anything? They're those people
would go fight with a mall cop.
Yes. And so the point I'm making
there are people.
Yes. And you know what those people typically have?
Issues.
Mental issues. And so
I get it.
I think that's the thing
I
is
get what
everyone's spoiled, black card, can spend all this money, entitled, all stuff. And I'm looking at it and I'm even if you are all of those things, right? Even on our worst day, if we have all of those things, we are not going and doing the 3 or 4 things John Morant just went and did. That's just not at the list of the things you go and do.
The point I'm making is this: I think this radiates all through society as to, and it's just the choices that people make and the interpersonal struggles that people have with purpose and happiness and goals and what am I going to do? And because there's lots of schmucks that I see that handle things and I'm what are they doing? And they're not rich, they're not famous, but they got in a fight with a mall cop or they got thrown out of a bar. I mean, how many of your friends have been thrown out of bars?
No, I get that. But this is what I'm saying. I'm not saying that those people don't get in fights. What I'm saying though is they're on a private plane flying to an island and they get in a fight with the bartender. To say that this is
if you don't get good bartender service on your private flight, you should get in a fight. That's just the way it is.
I think there's this concept of this is normal. I'm trying to think the word I want. This is normal obscure behavior. I know those two things.
No,
don't
I get
go
what you're trying to say. That
this is not normal obscure behavior because even if you are somebody that is lost and trying to find your way, you are immature or you don't know how to handle this money, you don't know how to do these things. I'm not saying that you don't get in fights or that you don't make bad decisions, but you don't make them at a random pickup court. You don't make them at a mall with a
I get
mall
what you're
cop.
saying.
It doesn't. So again, there's no benefit to anything he's doing right now. And there seems to be a complete disconnect, a lapse of just when it matters and when it doesn't matter. And to me, that just screams it. And I have been somebody that has been very I have been super critical about people claiming mental health. I think we went too far the other way, right? And I know I get crushed for that with friends. And I'm no. You can't, everyone just claims it now. You can't just claim it. I was looking at this and someone who's very critical about it was kind of he's showing every red flag and no one seems to want to admit that he's showing these red flags. It's very interesting.
No, I'm with you.
And what's crazy is a year from now, you may come back to me and be boy, John Morant's a jerk. And I might be yeah, he was.
You are.
He was one.
I don't know. And it's why mental health, at least as a society, we're coming to grips with the fact that we need to learn more about it. We need to be better about it. But forever and ever and ever, it's going to be the challenge with mental health is that it's just not, again, a guy pukes in the corner, he's sick. A guy's been coughing for 20 minutes, he's sick.
Right.
It's different.
It's harder to
and
see.
it's harder to read. So
I
anyway,
agree.
it is a fascinating conversation above and beyond how good he is.
Yeah. Just to wrap up. So is Mark trying to claim that you can use the immaturity claim up until
Well,
how long can a person claim immaturity? What is the cutoff date for immaturity?
That is
it's a really good question.
There's a lot of, I think, how do I say this? I think periodic immaturity is a necessity. I think the people who are happiest, who are most. Have you ever met people? See, and you're younger and you don't. But as you go through this now, and all your friends are having kids and all this stuff, there are the adults who have the inability to be silly with the 4-year-old on the floor, and I think that is a lack of, like, if you can't. Because like when you said I was hanging out with my nieces or the kids this weekend, my first reaction was going to say, "Did you let them draw on your face?" And there are those people who can't, and the people who can't get down on the floor, who can't play hide and seek, and I think it hurt. I think if you don't have that aspect of your personality, it hurts. So there's a level of immaturity. Did I ever tell you the peekaboo game I was playing with my dog?
No, but quickly, because I want to keep my train of thought.
Oh, then go ahead.
What's the peekaboo?
Well, we were out at a restaurant, and we're at the table, and it's just like this. And I'm at this table, and I'm on this side, and at the other end of the table is this kid in a high chair. Okay. And my daughter's in between us, and there's somebody, and I'm playing peekaboo with this kid at the next table. And I'm 40. I'm in my late 40s at the time.
Sure.
But and I am one of the great peekaboo players of all time. And so this kid, and my daughter's mortified because she's a teenage girl, and I'm playing peekaboo with this kid that I don't know. Mm. And so she's yelling at me and like, "You leave the kid alone." I was like, "Listen, this is what you're missing. These people are out to dinner with their kid." And like, I was like, for 3 minutes, I'm occupying their kid's smiling, their kid's laughing, and they don't have to worry about anything because I'm their favorite person right now. For the next 3 minutes, I'm their favorite. Yeah. Well, we get back, and it was a buffet. So we had to go get our food, and we came back. Now my daughter was sitting in my seat, thinking that she had ruined the peekaboo game. So I had to sit in the other seat. So I just turned my chair around, and now I was even closer to and it was.
That's pretty good.
But that was because a kid, she's just like, "You're embarrassing me."
Sure.
And I'm like, as a parent, like, their kid's smiling, laughing, and they don't have to. They're getting a break from their kid, and it's only 3 minutes. We're not playing for a half hour.
Okay, so I'm actually glad you told that story because it's going to play in perfectly to what I wanted to say.
Because you suck at peekaboo and you need lessons?
No. So Simon Sinek, who some people know, some people don't. But Simon Sinek he's a speaker. He's done a bunch of TED Talks, talks about leadership a lot. But one of the things in one of his talks, he talks about how life is way more about waves than bell curves. So like you and I talk about bell curves a lot and all that stuff. But he talks about, like, in the flow of your life, way more waves than that.
Okay.
One of the things, he doesn't personally attach this to it, but I have always thought immaturity is way more waves in your life than this like idea of like a bell curve. Like you hit maturity and then
it disappears.
And so in that story, your daughter was at the peak of her wave, right? Like when you hit that moment of your teenage, in that world, you have reached your peak maturity. But once you start college again, you're kind of starting from the bottom again. And then once you start life, so like for me right now, I think I'm like near the bottom of my immaturity in this wave. Cause like I'm not engaged yet. I just finally bought a house. But I feel like I've hit peak maturity twice in my different waves of life. So that's always stuck with me when people talk about immaturity. They're like, you can't be immature anymore. And I'm like, you're going to be immature when you're 60. You just don't know it yet. Whenever that wave hits and you're starting a new chapter.
See, I thought he was going to talk about how the wave is throughout the day.
Well, that applies too. Like his whole thing is like, you can, too many times we assume like it's finite and it's really infinite. Like you're always going to battle immaturity, maturity your whole life. It's not this finite thing of like this half of your life was immaturity and now the rest of your life is maturity. Like that's just not how it works.
No. Well, and if it does, then you've missed the boat.
I agree with that. Because that's why I said I'm happy you told your story before I explained, because I thought it worked out very well.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like, have you ever seen somebody freshly retired? Like when they're just starting their retirement? You're telling me there's not an immaturity to their life? Waking up whenever they want to, doing whatever they want to do, figuring it out for the first time.
For the first 3 days, they wear nothing but boxers and never leave the house.
Yes. I mean, that is life is a constant wave of hitting your peak maturity, and then once the next phase starts, you're immature again, trying to figure it out. Like that is the way.
Oh, I didn't tell you this. So I pick up my daughter from college. My daughter is uber nerd, microbiology major. I pick her up on Friday, and in her apartment, there's a movie theater tub of popcorn, and she's because we always bring the popcorn home because stale popcorn is one of the greatest foods ever. I know we've debated that, but she's like, "Oh, if you want to finish this, I'm done, whatever."
Right.
And I said, "What'd you see?" So again, uber nerd, microbiology. She got a 4.0 in the fall.
Yeah.
Cocaine Bear.
Okay.
That's what they went to see.
Yeah.
And I said,
it got really good reviews.
I said, how was it? She said, it's just what you would expect.
Yeah.
And I read a buddy of mine who's like, he laughed out loud multiple times. Mm-hmm. He's like, it is what, if you go in looking for something deep and philosophical, you're going to the wrong place.
Right.
But if you go in hoping to laugh out loud, you will probably laugh out loud. I saw the reviews were very good.
Yeah.
So literally on the drive home, now we are hours later, she gets a text from her high school brother. Hey, while you're home for spring break, let's go see Cocaine Bear. So she has seen it now twice.
Yeah.
And she's given the same review, and he thought it was funny. But it is, if you are too, I tell people this, one of my most underrated movies of all time is Hot Tub Time Machine. Yeah. You go in, but you go in expecting what you expect, but it's funny, and you will laugh out loud.
Yeah.
And it is unfortunate for the people who've got to a point in life where they miss that.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Are you going to go see Cocaine Bear?
I won't go see it.
Okay.
But I will see
when
it
comes
sooner
out,
or later. Yeah. I'm
and
he said that like the reviews are like 75% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's doing very, very well online. I just want to mention we're bringing back North Central Cinema. So he's going to come on. So later this week, we will have North Central Cinema back with Joe Smith. He's going to review some of the movies here from award season and some of the stuff he's seen lately.
Do you think Joe Smith is going out of his way to see Cocaine Bear?
Yeah, I think so. Because I think A, Joe just loves cinema, period.
He gets it.
And I think B, I think Joe won't go in with like a snobby, Joe gets it.
And here's the reason that I think he will go as well as a movie reviewer to go see because he has seen the response.
Sure.
And he's got to be, if Cocaine Bear was getting like 20% across the board, and when he saw the original preview, he was probably like, I can take it or leave it. But now that it's doing well and the critics like it, I'm sure he's just morbidly curious. Like, if everyone, I got to see this.
Oh yeah. Just a couple of things because I want to hear what you've been watching too to wrap up today. Last of Us season finale is next week. If just HBO just knocks stuff, they just can't do anything wrong. It's just incredible. It is worth watching. Next week is
how many
finale.
episodes?
9 is the first season.
I stumbled across it.
Okay.
And I watched half of an episode.
Okay.
Obviously, I can't make a critique out of half of the episode, but it was not awful. I'll say that.
It's just so well done. And then if you get to episode 3, it's one of the greatest episodes of television ever. It is that good. Nick Offerman's in it. It's like a one-off. You don't know who Nick Offerman is? He's in Parks and Rec. He's got a mustache, always eating bacon.
I might know if I saw him.
Yeah, you probably would.
I did watch House of the Dragon after you said it, and it was worth watching. I really enjoyed it.
The other thing that I just watched, just because award season and all that, I did watch the Banshees of Inisherin. Have you heard of this?
Yes.
It was, my girlfriend and I had a conversation trying to decide what the movie is actually about, like what the real internal message is supposed to be. Colin Farrell is just incredible. His partner in it, who I always forget his name, and he's been in the Harry Potter movies before, and he's just really, really good. And I always feel bad that I can't ever remember his name. They are great in it together. It's a movie about friendship and what matters in life, but it's set on this island where everyone speaks like this deep, almost like Irish, they keep saying feckin', that's the language. Really, really good. I would suggest you watch it because it's in the core of it. It is about how do we spend our time and who do we spend it with, and it is just you'll laugh, you will cry. It's really, really good.
I started it.
Okay.
And it was late.
Okay.
And this is one of my, first world life debates.
Yeah.
When it's 11 something am I going to start something new
Yeah.
that I got to watch,
Mm-hmm.
or am I going to start something I've seen before that I can just follow?
Correct.
And I started it, and the thick accent movies are a little tough for me because I know I got to focus.
Yep.
And I got to put my phone down,
Yep.
and I got to be in it. And I determined at this point, I am not into it at 11:30, whatever night it was. So it is one that I've heard nothing but good things about it.
Mm-hmm.
The movie that I just watched most of the other day was, or last night, was Don't Look Up with Leonardo DiCaprio. And it is fascinating.
Yeah.
It is. It's not action-packed. It's not uproarious, but it is a sad commentary on society.
It's too real satire is what it is.
It is, yes.
It's too real satire.
So
and most satire, you get to laugh because it's kind of slapping you in the face, but this is punching you in the face. Like, it's almost too real to laugh at.
And in watching it at the beginning, I was like, it's one of those, is this what Leo's doing now?
Yeah.
But after, and I've probably seen 2/3 of it before I got tired. After, I'm sure he read the script and he's like, I'll do this. I'll do it for free.
Sure.
I'll do it for whatever, because this is it's a great project.
You know what's funny is the irony of you watching that now. And we had talked about Russell Brand going on the Bill Maher show.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that Russell Brand is kind of doing with this media circuit, because he's going on everything right now. He's been on every news station, every pod. He went on Joe Rogan's podcast, Bill Maher show. He was on MSNBC. He was on Fox. He is doing the rounds. The irony to you watching Don't Look Up, and we're saying it's too real satire. Right now, he's doing the rounds, and he's kind of calling everybody out on the same things that movie is about, of kind of the buffoonery of media and how it's all a stage, and it's all. And so him doing this round right now is almost aligning perfectly with you watching that movie.
If you want to watch Russell Brand on Bill Maher, and he is, what's funny is he's talking about America and how America should be great and America should be better. He's not American, and he knows it. Yes. And he's now everyone is all up in arms about Fox News, because Fox News is basically, it's been exposed that the people knew that, and they're just but we're talking about it because of ratings, and we know the election wasn't stolen, and this evidence that we talk about isn't there, and all this stuff. He goes, but I've been on MSNBC, and it's the same thing, and they're all the same. And you can't say, well, the liberal side is bad when we're the Republican side, when the Republican side is doing the same thing, or the Republican side is bad. It's the same. They're the same. They're different. And then the guy tried to. So it was entertaining as hell. And the thing that I told you about it that I noticed a lot of it is Bill Maher stepped back and let him go.
Yeah.
And there was never a point where he was, because there's a point as the host, or I'm watching, he'll talk for 8 minutes and won't shut up if Bill doesn't step in. Sure. Where's the host stepping in? And Bill barely stepped in. He's nope, you go. You have your stage, and because he made about 1,500 good points.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating.
No, I totally agree. Anything else before we have to go?
No, nothing that needs to.
I do want to say this. I'm hoping tomorrow you and I are going to jump on. Come back in a second.
I have friends that were there because he filmed it in Baltimore.
Okay.
I have friends that were there.
Okay.
And it's been one of the things on my Facebook feed. What did you think? Because obviously, if you weren't there, but you could see it on Netflix, and I did not see it yet, but you did. It will be. I'm ready to watch it. I'm pumped.
So you're going to watch that tonight.
I'll watch it.
We're not going to do a full 45-hour show tomorrow.
Maybe we will.
We are going to come on tomorrow. We do want to talk about it because we had spent 2 solid episodes discussing the whole culture, society, the whole incident. So now that Chris Rock has spoken out, I think it would be interesting to have a 20-30-minute conversation just about Chris Rock's stand-ups, the 7-minute clip at the end. So if you want to join
and that
in with
is,
us tomorrow,
it's the very end. It's an hour special, right?
So if you want to join in with us tomorrow and you haven't watched the Chris Rock special, it is on Netflix. The last 7 minutes, he goes head on about the Will Smith incident, and he does not hold back any punches. So no pun intended.
So there's your homework.
Yes.
So for those of you watching it late, turn us off now and go watch the last 7 minutes. I'm gonna watch the whole thing because you will just general of the show in general. Good.
I thought it was good. I am a Chris Rock fan. When I was first coming up into I know this is a longer answer and I should make it. When I was first getting into stand-up comedy, I used to have CD discs of like all the different stand-ups, and the two I probably played the most were Robin Williams Live in Vegas, and the other one was Chris Rock Bigger and Blacker. So for me, Chris Rock is stand-up comedy. Like he is the epitome of what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to go about it.
Because when I think of Jeff Everett, I think of Bigger and Blacker.
Blacker, exactly. So for me, Chris Rock, this is not my favorite special. I think he has moments that are not his greatest. It's older. Who knows what he wanted to talk about. He's also in a weird position. He's getting older, but his life's getting younger. He's divorced now. He's single. So he's in this weird point in his life where I think some of his thoughts don't align with where he's at in life. And Chris Rock has always been somebody that has seen the world for what it is. Like he does a great job of identifying things and saying, no, like this is it. So I think he struggled with that in this special. He has 2 or 3 clips that are fantastic. And again, the last 7 minutes, he goes head on, and it is worth every penny.
Well, for anybody like Chris Rock, what is Chris Rock 50 now?
He's got to be in his 50s now. I'll look, but he's got to be that old.
That was one of the things that I read. I read people like I'm great, or he was great, and a lot of people like
he's 58.
Oh, he's that old. He's almost 60. That he said and a lot of the people prefaced it like you did. I'm a Chris Rock fan, but I heard someone say it's not one of his top 2 performances. No. It's not, but he's done so many, and his career has been so great. Mm-hmm. Like it's hard for Bruce Springsteen to put out an album now that's as good as Born to Run.
This was, and again, like not implying like I'm a stand-up specialist, but I watch a ton. I think Chris Rock's biggest problem is very few of us are 50-year-old multimillionaires that are single and can do whatever they want to do. And so now if you're him and you're going to make a special that's relatable, like you're going to talk about current issues and things that I don't like, how many people are actually in the same boat as him?
I check a lot of those boxes, except the multimillionaire who can do whatever he wants to do. Those are the boxes I'm missing.
So I'm curious what your take will be on that. But you know what I mean? Like, I think out of all of the stuff he has done, this was the most unrelatable that he has done. And that doesn't mean it's bad. It just, he's so good at like saying something. You're like, oh my God, that's perfect. Like that's exactly. And I think he swung and missed on a couple of stuff with this. It's still funny. Like I'm not sitting here.
He's a little bit talented.
This is the other problem too. You're asking me to grade, like I'm grading him, but I'm grading him on the Chris Rock scale.
Right. He can't. He's set the bar so high for himself.
I'm not grading him on on a normal comedian scale. So that's part of the other issue.
I wonder, that would be a fact, because you see this more in music than anyone. How many bands that have been around for 20 plus years have put out an album that is now, is considered great, that when they've already had 9 albums out, or what, who has pulled out that album number 12 that is really, really, they're like, oh, this is some of the best they've ever done.
Yeah.
And it is, that's hard. It's
hard. I just think it's hard the more successful you are, the less relatable you're going to be. And I still think to this day, whether you're stand-up, musician, whatever you are, I think the thing that made you special at the beginning, where someone went and said, like, yes, like I get that, you can't, it slips away from you. You just can't be that.
There are genres, like Spielberg can do it because you can make a movie about anything.
Correct.
And you can tell a totally different story from but in music or comedy, it is a challenge. I'm excited to watch it tonight. I wish I'd have watched it last night. If I would have been aware of what was going on, I would have.
All right. We'll be back to talk about Chris Rock, Will Smith tomorrow. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. For all of your local news, be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com. Today, I am Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. We will see you guys tomorrow.
Later.